What's up, YouTube? High definition television. Eric B. Back again. Another video in the can. Month of December 2022. I hope this finds you all well. I'm motivated to make this video because an artist I greatly admire unfortunately passed away on the 4th of December. Announced just 4 days ago, December 11th, via all of the outlets, basically. And I'm talking about Manuel Gottsching. I'm not necessarily a veteran to Gottsching's work. He was, of course, I say of course, maybe not of course to everybody watching this, he was involved in projects like Ashraf Temple, Cosmic Jokers. Of course, he had a solo career, worked with Klaus Schultz on many occasions, started a band called Ashraf, which then again became Ashraf Temple. A very storied, very colorful, very productive career in experimental music. Not just German experimental music, but experimental music in general. I feel like a lot of people that are going to make the time to talk about him in a video are probably going to go out of their way to talk about albums like E2, E4, which is stellar, a perfect 10 out of 10. Now, as far as 10 out of 10 records go, Gottsching's record is pretty spotless. He's probably got a lot of records that a lot of people would consider 10 out of 10s. Inventions for electric guitar, it's a 10 out of 10. At any rate, earlier this month, I didn't know that he had passed. And I placed an order. I placed my first order through cdandlp.com on the internet, which is, I don't know, kind of like Discogs meets eBay, but only buy now options, but from European, British dealers slash sellers. And it happened to be for an Ashraf Temple record. It is, I think, technically the 7th Ashraf Temple record. And that would be New Age of Earth. Like Inventions for Electric Guitar, this is also basically a Manuel Gottsching solo album. He's literally got the only artist credit inside the record. However, you'll see his partner, I believe his partner, or muse at least, Rosie, right here. Now she appeared on the 4th Ashraf Temple record, I believe the one after Timothy Leary, but before the blue cover one. First of all, check out that cover artwork. It's just so good. It's so indicative and evocative of a name like Ashraf Temple, evoking, I don't know, psychedelia, spirituality, calm. Everything that you would hear on this album, honestly, is kind of embodied with this cover art. Nothing on the back. You already saw the gatefold. This record is stellar. It is an ambient, I wouldn't say masterpiece, but I would call it an essential piece of Ashraf Temple's history, discography, especially in terms of albums featuring Manuel Gottsching. Now, this was recorded between like March and June of '76. So right around the time that I came upon this world, so did this record. Probably, honestly, of the Ashraf Temple related projects I own, one of my favorites. It's up there for sure with all the Cosmic Jokers stuff. First two Ashraf Temples, of course. This album is just stellar. This is where Gottsching really started experimenting with synth soundscapes as well as his electric guitar. Um, he plays keyboards, synthesizer, and Gibson guitar. I wish it actually noted what synth and what keyboard Gottsching primarily played. It doesn't though, but I do appreciate that it specifies he's a Gibson man. And if you have seen the cover to Inventions for Electric Guitar, you'll see he's got a Gibson SG there in his hands. Just stellar LP. So calming, so atmospheric, lushly composed. I can't say enough good things about this album. This is an original on the Isadora label, which has just a stellar inner label. I love that label. It's so good. Apropos for this record, really, in my opinion. Now, another record by Gottsching that I don't expect a lot of people, again, who will be doing a tribute of any sort, and this isn't specifically just about Gottsching. This is kind of about him, yes, but it's also about some music that, thinking about him, spurned me to pull, in addition to his work. So the other one with him would be this 1980 LP from Ashraf. Again, another stellar album cover. Abstract colors, bleeding watercolors, or blurred spoons in a glass of water. I don't know. Killer. Again, exceptionally evocative of what you're going to find on this album. Now, it's 1980, so we're talking production time of 4 years later from the last record we looked at. This is a 80s record. The sound is undeniably rooted in that decade. You have Manuel Gottsching, guitar, sequencer, synthesizer, electric guitar, bass even. It's also got Harold Grosskopf on drums, percussion, also synth, and does some vocals on one of the tracks. And Lutz Ulbrich, who you'll hear on guitars, 12-string, bottleneck, keyboards, and vocals as well. Those two guys would, I believe, go on to join Gottsching for the reformation of Ashraf Temple. Again, this is an Ashraf record, not to be confused with Ashraf Temple. Now, really the only delineation, as far as I understand it, is that the record label didn't want Gottsching releasing albums under the name Ashraf Temple, and for whatever reason, not under his own name either. So he's just called it Ashraf. This record is great. It is just a relaxing, almost celebratory exercise in ambience. Doesn't skimp on the screaming guitar solos though, man. Like, that's one of the things I really love about Gottsching's work, is that regardless of how ambient it ever gets, or how calm or how just still the music is, there will always be a guitar-led crescendo where he just solos the shit out of that SG. It's fucking stellar. I love this record. It's fantastic. It's not as good as those early Ashraf Temples or the Cosmic Jokers or even the Gottsching records that preceded it, but it still is very worthy of having his name attached to this project. Now with these two out, it kind of, again, like I said, motivated me to pull some other stuff that I feel like is kind of evocative. All German, Krautrock, and I've said it before, I don't really like the term Krautrock, and I think previously called it derogatory. I don't know that I would say derogatory, but I would say, I wouldn't call it derogatory, I would call it reductive. Considering the spectrum of music that it is encompassed within the genre. So this is all German, basic, like psychedelic, electronic, with their share of actual instrumentation. This is one of my favorite German records of the era, and it is a culmination of a couple of the most well-known groups in that scene, kind of disbanding, dispersing, and becoming something new. I'm talking about members that started off in Krautrock, that then went on to Neu, that then became La Düsseldorf. Just a killer project. Another album cover that I love. You've got, of course, Düsseldorf there on the bottom edge of this LP. Love the nighttime shot with the lights. La Düsseldorf consisted of Klaus and Thomas Dinger of Neu, as well as Hans Lampe. Don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but I'm gonna go with it. How to describe this? I would say that it sounds kind of like Neu, but I feel again like that's reductive. The vibe I really pick up from this is ecstatic. It is a celebration of music, of ambience, of noise. It borders at times on being proto-punk, especially the second track, La Düsseldorf. Not to be confused with the lead-off track, Düsseldorf. La Düsseldorf, a proto-punk masterpiece. It's like German soccer hooligans channeling the Ramones using a drum machine and synthesizers. Just a stellar album. It's got 4 tracks on here. Both sides are again stellar. Neither side is one more stellar than the other. Really, it's one of those records that builds up. It's a you put on at the start of the record, and you listen through the whole record, both sides, in one sitting. You don't just play a side and then put on something else. Just a killer record. One of 2 La Düsseldorf albums. A lot of people would say that Viva, the second record, the follow-up to this, is probably their favorite. I like them equally. Sometimes, like right now, this is probably my preferred LP. That's why I'm showing you this and not Viva. This is an original, well, I say original. This is a 78 press on the Radar label. Just killer stuff. And now this was as well produced and remixed by Connie Plank. Connie Plank, of course, Conrad Plank. For you metal heads, would know Connie Plank as producing the first Scorpions LP, Lonesome Crow, a stellar album, one that sounds nothing like what the Scorpions would go on to do, and a krautrock classic in its own right. Connie Plank also was involved in the making of this 1980 record, Mobius and Plank. Rostakraut Pasta, just such a goofy name, and I love the cover art. Mobius and Plank is Connie Plank and Mobius, obviously, of Cluster. Back, it's a reissue on Bureau B. Sky Records originally released it. Nice printed inner photos of the two. Dieter Mobius, also just a legendary figure in the krautrock scene. This album is a really fun listen. It's very playful. It's kind of a silly record. It is these two German heavyweights basically playing with dub and reggae and ska. Um, if I were to compare what's on this to anything else out of that scene, it'd be like the Sad Skinhead off of Faust 4. That type of vibe. Um, Very, very atmospheric. A lot of ambience to this. A lot of echoes to producers out of the dub scene, like King Tubby. Just a rad record. I found out about this record thanks to Aaron, metal theologian, as he's guilty of turning me on to so much music. This record is the least of things that he's pointed me in the direction of. And it's killer. It's a favorite for sure. I pull this a lot, and that Gottsching LP coming in definitely motivated me to pull this from the shelf again. I think a lot of people would not necessarily call this Mobius and Plank's best record. I want to say they collaborated on like 4 LPs. It's the only one I've got. Because it's just such a fun record, such a fun listen. A lot of the other stuff that they have collaborated with is a bit more challenging, a bit less on the musical side, more on the experimental side. Now, speaking of Dieter Mobius, we've got a cluster record, Zuckerzite. This is my favorite cluster record. I think a lot of people would generally disagree with me on that assertion. I'm not saying I think it's I'm not saying it's the best cluster record. I'm saying I think it's their best record. That's not definitive. Your opinion is your opinion. I like them all, but this record is stellar. One of the things that I think really makes this record stand out, unlike the records that preceded it, is the presence of a drum machine, a rhythm section, as it were, which I feel like really aids the ambience of what's present on the LP. Another really nice printed inner. This one's reissued by Lilith Records, originally 1974, so it's a bit earlier than that Mobius and Plank record. Quite a few tracks on here. That's one of the things I really appreciate about this project is none of the cuts really exceed like 5 minutes, except for like one hits the 6-minute mark. And it's just a really easy to listen to, easy to sit down and get lost in sort of record. Very calming, very soothing, very expansive. I don't want to sound like one of those people that thinks they're smarter than they are. I don't think I'm that smart, believe me. But this is the type of music that I feel like will help expand the things that you think about, the things that you contemplate when you're listening to music. I don't think it'll make you smarter, but I think it might make you use your brain a little bit more, your imagination. It might make you more in touch with your emotions that are evoked when you're listening to certain things, especially certain things like this. I love that picture of Mobius and Rodelius. Just great. What a duo. One of the other things I've mentioned with this record is that often credited to the making of this album is Michael Rother. He said himself that his involvement really went only so far as lending them his gear. Even the credit that he gets isn't for actually participating on the album, but more for producing it. So, that being said, a project that does contain Mobius, Rodelius, and Rother is this Harmonia album. What a fucking record. The second Harmonia full length on Brain. This is a reissue from, I don't know, some years back. You've got the gatefold. Look at that. Look at that studio. I mean, it's a flat that's just dominated by gear. You've got Rodelius, organ, guitar, percussion. You've got Rother, guitar, piano, percussion. Mobius, synth, guitar, percussion. This record has a lot in common with that Cluster record. Came on a nice repress, as I said, on the Brain label, nice reproduction of the Green Brain label there. This is just a stellar record. It's very similar to everything else that we've looked at here in that it's exceptionally expansive. It's a vast recording. It sounds jubilant. It sounds joyous. And it's a joy to listen to. All of these albums, one of the things that they all share in common is that they're all uplifting, which I feel like as people who primarily listen to a lot of subversive, kind of fucked up music, listen to something uplifting now and again goes a long ways. And it took me a while to kind of realize that. And this is kind of primarily the stuff that I've been just like fiending for musically as of late, minus my last video. But you could say since my last video, just kind of like a paradigm shift almost in music tonality. Stellar record though from Harmonia. I've talked about their previous record, Deluxe, before. Just as good. Killer. And that's what I've got. That's all I've got to talk about. It's a bummer that Gottsching is no longer with us, considering that, he was still making music up to now in some form or another, or still somehow involved in the production of music up to now. And there's projects now that he'll never get to work on, or that he'll never finish, or that we'll never get to hear, that he may have come up with, and that's a real shame. But maybe this will inspire you to look into some of the stuff he's been involved in prior to now, and check it out, and not just stuff that he's been involved in, but stuff that people that he knew or respected were also involved in, such as this grouping of LPs that we've looked at tonight. So that said, I want to thank you again for coming by and kicking it and watching me ramble about records. Maybe not as eloquently as I'd hoped going into this. I did do some research though, as far as when this shit came out. 1974, if I didn't say on this one. Just rad stuff. I urge you to take a look into all this stuff. Like I said, it's not going to make you smarter, but it might make you think a bit more about what it is that you're listening to. It might put a smile on your face, and that's cool if it does. I'm out. Comment below if you've got any thoughts to share. R.I.P. Manuel Gottsching. Later, YouTube.